Friday marks the 50th anniversary of the day that President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas. And now, never-before-seen photos taken minutes before he was killed.
So the photos published in the latest issue of Time magazine were only recently discovered after the death of an amateur photographer.
Images like this one show JFK and a smiling First Lady on that sunny November day. Joining us now, Radhika Jones, Deputy Managing Editor for Time magazine. Good morning. Welcome to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So tell us, who took the photos and how were they discovered?
The photos were taken by a man named H. Warner King. He was a jeweler in Dallas, and he was a fan of President Kennedy. He traveled a lot, but he arranged to be in town on that fateful day, staked out a good spot along the path of the motorcade. And he was able to photograph the president quite up close, as you see in those pictures, minutes before the assassination. And what's amazing is, you know, as the whole nation was, Mr. King was traumatized. He put the negatives away. He didn't do anything with them. He put them in storage. He later retired to New Zealand. And it wasn't until his death in 2005 that his daughter, in looking through his effects, found this box labeled Kennedy 1963 and pulled out these pictures.
This is such a gift for everyone. The photos are simply amazing. Can you talk to us about some of the photos?
They are really striking. I mean, I know we at Time, when we heard about them, we thought, well, surely we've seen everything there is to see from this day. We know the Zapruder film practically by heart. We've seen all of these images. You know, they've been the focus of films and investigations over 50 years. But there's something about the vividness of these pictures, the closeness, the vitality of the president and his wife, and the vitality of the crowd. You can see people there with cameras themselves taking pictures, people with babies and young children, just excited to be out on this sunny day and seeing the president. And it just reminds you of how quickly his life was snuffed out and how traumatic it was for the nation and for everyone watching.
You know, it's very haunting to see those images, certainly in light of knowing what comes next. The death of John F. Kennedy is certainly haunted by conspiracy theories. And I'm wondering, do you think that's ever going to end?
That's the focus of our cover story by David Von Draley, and he makes a very persuasive argument that it won't end, partly because of some of the ways in which the immediate autopsy and forensic investigation was rushed, and that, of course, is partly because people were so concerned about the transition of power and about whether this was the beginning of more assassination attempts on our leaders. But what David remarks is that, in a way, to close the case on the Kennedy assassination is to give up our belief that that there was great promise in this man and his leadership, that there was great promise in this generation. You know, it's hard to believe we put so much stake in the power of our presidency as the symbol of our democracy, and to think that it could be simply snuffed out by one man with one bullet is almost even more heartbreaking than the actual death. So in a way, the way that the Kennedy case stays alive is partly because of our desire to believe that the presidency is stronger than just one man and one bullet.
And I know that we're focusing on the assassination, but really it is the Kennedys, right? The Americans are just fascinated by the Kennedys.
I think they really still are. And, you know, the occasion of this anniversary is causing a lot of writing about Kennedy's legacy, and there's a lot of reevaluation about whether he was as good a president as people believed, you know, shortly after his death. There are a lot of questions about what he would have done in Vietnam, how he would have led us through the civil rights movement. But the truth is that we'll never know, right? Because he really never had much time in office, and because the nature of his death was so tragic, and it really struck at the core of one of the things we hold dear, the peaceful transition of power in our government. Whatever one's ideology, we've watched so many times a Republican president give way to a Democrat and vice versa, and to have such a violent and traumatic end to a presidency, especially one as beloved as Kennedy was, I think is still traumatic.
Well, it has been just a pleasure to have you this morning. Thank you for sharing. Radhika Jones, appreciate your time this morning.